What's up, everybody? Mark with Cardivox Academy here, and today I'm extremely excited for many reasons. Number one, first and foremost, it is the day after our first video by our new vocal coach, Verona. She is a pop singer. Well, much more than a pop singer. She sings pop, contemporary, jazz, all of that stuff, all those clean singing things. And she's been a vocal instructor for over 10 years now, longer than I have. And she did her first video looking at Alkaline by Sleep Token and did an excellent review and analysis of Vessel's voice. And the response has been overwhelmingly positive, honestly, better than we could have asked for. So thank you, everyone who watched that. And if you haven't watched that and you're a fan of Sleep Token, go check out Verona's video about Alkaline, because you'll really learn a lot about his singing voice and how you can get your singing voice, as powerful and as good as you want with her instruction. Now let's talk about what we're going to do today. We are going to be checking out Unanswered, the original version by Suicide Silence vocalist Mitch Lucker. Now, I've done this twice before, so thank goodness I have a good memory. Well, part of a good memory, and I'm not like first time reaction, because that'd be easy to disprove, right? But we're going to check this out because, I was thinking about it, and we've got Phil Bozeman's version, right? We have, I believe, Darius from Spite. It's been a long time, but his cover of Unanswered. So why not do the original? And then what we can do is, you can look at the others and kind of compare and contrast the different vocalists. Now, I want to be clear about something here. Another reason I want to do this video is because obviously Mitch is an icon. Mitch was one of the leading deathcore vocalists, and by many people's accounts, one of the founders of modern deathcore vocals as a style as we know about them. However, he was partially a product of his era. There were certain things about his voice technique that we're playing a bit of a risky game, and we'll talk about that as we get into it. Now, I love the sound of his voice. I'm very familiar with the sound of his voice, and finally, lastly, this is one of the most covered songs in like the metal world. So if you're planning a Suicide Silence vocal cover of Unanswered, which I'm sure I'll eventually do one at some point, hopefully this video is helpful for you. Now, who am I to be talking to you? My name is Mark. I'm the vocalist in a band called Kardashev. We're on Metal Blade Records. We've been around for about 13 years, 12 years, I don't know, long time. I've been doing vocals for close to 15 years, and I'm a full-time vocal instructor specializing in teaching you how to do all sorts of crazy vocals safely and efficiently so you can meet your vocal dreams. And if you're interested in more poppy stuff or, bands like Killswitch or things like that, and you want to know about clean singing, we've got someone for you now. Her name's Verona. She can help you out. Now, let's go ahead and let's jump into it. Everybody knows this song. The song's been around for frickin' ever. So there's not really like an intro not needed. So let's go ahead with my cool lopsided light setup. Let's check out Unanswered by Suicide Silence. Here we go. Now let's stop there because having heard this a bajillion times, I know all the spots where I want to stop. So one of the great things about Mitch's voice here is the incredible contrast between his highs and his lows as far as range is concerned, right? One thing that was very common in deathcore vocals back in the day when this song released, I don't actually remember when it released. Well, the video is 15 years ago, so let's just say that 15 years ago, was that it was very like, the vocals were kind of blocky, right? And what I mean by that is you had your highs, you had your mids, you had your lows, and they were generally on completely separate tracks, and they existed kind of separately from each other, right? And there was a lot of value in that. Now, I tend to prefer, what vocals are doing more in the current age, but this is where I came up, right? One benefit of having your vocals so far apart from each other as far as range is it builds a lot of dynamic contrast, right? So what that means is that essentially you're going to be able to do simple things, right? You're going to be able to do simple things on a record and still remain entertaining, right? Like if you have a and a right, that's quite a distance in vocal capability, right? And so when you do things like that, it's a very easy way to hold. Like if you think about this song, it's, you know, the first part has a quick little how much must I curse your name, but after that, and put your beliefs to shame until you prove yourself and end this life, right? The metering, the actual pattern is not that complicated. So as a vocalist, if you're out there, and this is, I think, one of the things that Mitch was the best at, was if you're going to have kind of an on-beat pattern, which is not bad, there's nothing wrong with it, switching between highs and lows can be a simple and quick way to make your sound, your music a little bit more interesting to listen to, right? Now, we're going to talk a little bit more technique here in a bit, but there's some great highs. Mitch was known for his highs that we're going to talk about, but that's kind of one of the main things I want you to listen to moving forward. Think about the usage of the highs and the usage of the lows, how he's using them, and what sort of decision-making is going on. Obviously, you know, when we're thinking about what vocalists were doing, we can never know for sure what their intention was because, you know, we weren't in the room with them unless I mentioned in an interview, but we can mimic tone, but we can also mimic songwriting, right? And so that's a really good thing we can do here. Let's keep going. Now let's go ahead and let's pause there and let's talk more about some actual vocal technique here. Now, the great thing about when we're talking about highs and lows and mids is a lot of what we talk about translates to false chord fry, whatever you want to talk about, right? And the reason for that is when we're dealing with vocals and we're dealing with the tone of the vocal, right? Much of what's creating the tone is happening inside of the mouth, inside of the vocal chamber, right? I just had a lesson this morning with my student Kit. Sup, Kit? If you see this, how you doing? But one thing we were talking about is how oftentimes the thing that gets in the way of a high vocal is tension. Very similarly to the thing that gets in the way of singing high notes is tension, right? So if you can do like a mid of any kind, like this is a false chord mid, it's not fancy, but you're having trouble, right? If you're having difficulty with that, the difficulty probably is lying in the fact that your muscles are doing too much, right? Here's a great example of what I mean by that. Let's go ahead, right? And this is something that Mitch excelled at, rest in peace. This is something that he excelled at, was the use of his mouth to modulate the vowel, to really like sit in that really bright formant, right? So if I take my voice, just air, and I go, oh, now all I'm going to do, I want you to watch my neck muscles, right? For my Star Trek fans out there, I'm not going to do the Cardassian neck, right? I'm going to stay perfectly relaxed here. My jaw's not going to tense. I'm going to change my timbre, right? And we can think of timbre as the way we make a single note sound different. E, same note, different timbre, right? Tone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that breath and I'm going to brighten the breath, okay? So I'm going to go here. Oh, right there. Now I'll do that up away from the mic. I got this new boom arm and it's low profile, which is really cool, but it doesn't like come up very well. So I don't know, maybe I'll go back to the old one. Doesn't matter. So now I'm going to do this looking into the camera and I want you to watch my neck and as much of my jaw as you can see. Right, here we go. Listen to how thin that stream of air got without me having to do a lot here. Now let's go a little bit farther, right? Right? What's happening is my throat muscles are staying relaxed, and that allows my larynx to lift just slightly, and for my tongue and my mouth and my soft palate to create a very whistly, thin space for the air to move through, which allows the distortion to get higher. Now, we could talk a lot more about how the distortion moves up. We start getting more distortion from the back of our mouth, depending on what style you're doing. But I think that's enough for now. Let's go ahead and let's keep going. And then I want to talk to you about some lows here because much respect for the dude, but his low technique was not my favorite. Although let's be real, it sounds amazing. Like I never want to give you the impression that vocals that don't have like perfect technique can't sound good. They can sound amazing, right? So I'm never gonna be like, oh, I don't know, I just can't get behind it. No, I've some of the best vocals I've ever heard in my life were vocals that are probably gonna shred the person in 3 months. So I wouldn't advise it, but I still, you know, make that stank face. But anyways, here we go. No lie, I still get goosebumps when I listen to that part because, like, I mean, I think this song has aged really well. I think it still hits today, but I remember when this song came out and I was still like sort of kind of a little church kid at the time. I was starting to think like, maybe all this church stuff ain't what I thought it was, right? Maybe it's not all it's cracked up to be, but I wasn't like fully removed yet. So I was listening to the song and I was like, can he say that? Oh my God, you know what I mean? But let's go ahead and let's talk some vocals. So a couple things I want to point out. There are, and I should have had it loaded up here. I'm not going to take the time to find it because I do have a lesson in like 15 minutes. But there are some videos out there that show Mitch recording in his studio. There's one with him and I think it's Big Chocolate. It's been a while since I found it. For anybody who doesn't know, Big Chocolate was a vocalist. It probably still does vocals. He was in, I believe it was Disfiguring the Goddess, and then eventually moved to like EDM, electronic music. But essentially, his tone sounds very different in that setting than it does in this song. Now, there are a couple reasons for this, right? First and foremost, one mistake that a lot of us make, and somebody who does vocal analysis partially for a living makes, is they'll find one clip of a vocalist and think that that is the totality, the entirety of their vocal technique. This is a pretty flawed method, right? Because, for example, you know, a 30-second clip of me in the studio might say that, oh, this is Mark's low technique, right? But also there's right. There are multiple techniques that I use. And likewise, there are probably multiple techniques and positions and tones and timbres that he focuses on, right? But if you listen to a lot of his vocals, much of them, not all of them, much of them have like sort of a shoving air past like a narrow space sound. And this is a sound that's hard for me to mimic because it's not one I advise. So I don't do it a lot, but I'll give it a try. So, you know, you've got like this. No, I'm still just doing proper false chord. But anyways, if I find the clip, I'll link it in the description below. But what we do here that I like, especially in this song, is a little bit of narrowing of the vocal tract, right? Now, narrowing of the vocal tract is often talked about as being compression, right? And when we're talking about compression, it's a slippery term. It's not the best term out there, but it's been used in the harsh vocal world for so long that we may as well continue using it since most of us know what we mean. But what we're really talking about is the narrowing of airflow, right? Now, this is a pretty easy concept to understand if you think about it, right? I made a video years ago overcomplicating the whole thing. I don't even think I have it up anymore because I watched it and I was just like, well, why are you making this so complicated? So it may not even be up there anymore. But we can compress the airflow coming out of our mouths just like this. Watch. I'm able to hold the second one a lot longer because my lips are narrow and that holds some of the air in my mouth while it's like moving out, right? And this can change the sound of our scream as well. Like I can have a very open basic false chord, nah, right? Or I can sort of narrow that, I can go even farther. That involves bringing in something called your arytenoid cartilages. That's for another video, right? And we get a lot of this here. It almost sounds like he's screaming with a like this sort of thing right here. And that's one thing that you can do for your vocals to really sort of get a handle on them. If you're having trouble with airflow, honestly, one of the best places to start, this isn't the answer for everything, but one of the best places to start is to look at the shape of your mouth, right? If you're running out of air and your mouth looks like this the whole time, well, that might be part of the reason why, if you're doing some false chord stuff. Fry is a different ball game with running out of air. But he's very, very good at holding on to his tone and leaning into it. I'm not, it's been a while since I heard his voice. I'm not convinced that this is like pure false chord. But as many of you know, I think putting vocals on a purely false chord or fry dichotomy sometimes provides the wrong answers. But what I do hear is I hear a compressed vocal that's very forward, that has a little bit of a wheezy sound that I wouldn't be comfortable with. But beyond that, in the record, it sounds amazing. Let's keep going. Well, I forgot how stupid short that song is, idiot. So anyway, let's go ahead. I was going to talk more technique here in a bit, but let's go ahead and just add it to the end of the video here. Now, by the way, well, let me stay on track. Okay. Brain's going all over the place. So let's think about this here. How can we switch between these very, very quickly? This is something that a lot of my students will talk about. In fact, sometimes I'll get students who they have amazing tones, right? They have a high that is just piercing. They have a mid that is just unrelenting. They have a low that is just disgusting, right? But they can't stitch them together. Now, there's no one answer for this because it kind of depends on the vocals that you're doing, right? Let's say you're doing a fry low, false chord mid, and like a fry high, right? That's going to be harder than if you're doing the same technique all the way through, right? But generally what you can do is you can take your vocals and you can do them as quietly as you possibly can. Now, they're not going to sound good, but that doesn't matter. A lot of getting good at vocals does not involve sounding good, right? Because we're dealing with individual ingredients. I want you to think about it like being in the kitchen, right? And let's say you've got a bunch of ingredients out that you're going to cook with. Well, a really smart thing to do if you're not familiar with the ingredients is to put a little bit of it on your hand, right? Or if it's just your own thing, you can, right? But if you're sharing with people, don't do that. Now, does raw cinnamon taste good? Absolutely not. But you can kind of get an idea of the profile. You can be like, oh, this cinnamon's a little smoky. Ooh, this cinnamon's a little sharp, right? So nobody's expecting the raw cinnamon or the raw nutmeg or the like chewing on a cardamom pod is gonna. Am I making a chai tea? What's going on here? Sounds good though, doesn't it? But nobody's expecting those individual ingredients to taste good. But by examining the individual ingredient, what you can do is you can get an idea of how it's going to sit in the entire recipe, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to take your vocals and you're going to make them as quiet as possible. And I'm just going to keep this all false chord because like that's my shtick, right? But here we go, right? Here's a false chord low, quiet, not that impressive. Yeah, this whole like leaning down thing is, I'm not a fan of that. I like staying straight. I'll figure it out later. Okay, now the mid, quiet, not interesting. Now the high, which at this volume is really just going to be a bright mid. It's not really going to be a high, right? Now you're going to descend and you're going to ascend, and you're just going to let yourself break apart. It doesn't matter, right? Allow yourself to mess up a lot, right? Ow. Ow. Now what you're going to notice when you start to get it is you're going to realize, holy crap, this is mostly entirely the shape of my mouth, the relaxation of my throat, and the pressure in my gut, right? When I am ascending, I'm slightly squeezing my gut, kind of feels like I'm pushing out a fart. You know you've done it. Don't pretend. If you're sitting there saying to an empty room, oh, I don't push out farts, shut your mouth. You do. That's like people who saying they get up to go to the restroom every time they fart. You're a liar and we all know it. Don't lie, Trisha. We all know. You're 4 chairs down and accounting. Anyway, sorry. I've got strong feelings about strange things. But when I ascend, I squeeze, feels like, pushing out a fart. Gently, not crazy, right? We're not trying to prolapse ourselves. This video just got very strange, but gentle. When I descend, it feels more relaxing. Ow. Lean in. Ow. right? And you'll be able to move forward. Let it take time, right? Now, there are a lot of different things that I could talk about, but I've got a lesson in 10 minutes. And keeping this video concise, I guess, is kind of in the spirit of the song. But I want to end on this, right? Working on your metal vocals doesn't always have to involve a sound of distortion. It can involve exercises to relax your muscles. It can involve exercises with just your clean voice or just your airflow to find interesting tones and timbres. It can involve learning how your breath works, right? I mean, obviously we all know breathe in, breathe out, but like I meet so many people who don't really know what the diaphragm does, don't really know what the ribs do during the process of inspiration and inhalation and exhalation, inspiration, aspiration. So these are things that you can focus on, right? If you have been reading about them a lot and you feel a little bit confused, you can check out my online course, False Chord Fundamentals, on cardivoxacademy.com. You can also learn about one-on-one lessons with me or our new clean singing coach, Verona, right? Because a lot of great bands sing and scream, right? And then if you're doing just fine with research on your own, hell yeah, keep it up. But if you are having a bit of difficulty, head over to our website where you can learn about one-on-one lessons, or you can check out the e-course if you're more of a learn at your own pace or you just don't have time for vocal lessons. But that's it. That's it, right? Go check out the videos I did on Darius and Phil Bozeman's take, and I would love to know which you prefer, which is your favorite. I'm going to be upfront and I'm going to say, Phil, for me, took it by a long shot. I think Darius's cover is amazing. I think Mitch's version is, I don't even know, like eternal. Maybe it will always be there. It will always be a pillar of deathcore vocals. But like when it comes to the one that I'm going to listen to most of my own time, that fucking just forget it. But anyways, that's it. Short and sweet video today. I'm going to go prep for my next lesson. And that's all I have. Thank you so much for watching. Keep an eye out for more videos. Go say something nice to Verona in her sleep token analysis. And that's all I have. Many thanks. Much love. I'm out.